Yeah, so I'm Marit, and if you're in the Cucumber Slack and or any of the GitHub projects, you might recognize me from my profile picture. And I'm going to talk about collaborating on open source, which is super fun and you all should do it. So first I'm going to tell you how I got started. I was relearning Java and was looking for a project to actually work on and learn from, rather than do coding challenges online, which is fun, but very, very limited. And I figured, you know, if I'm going to be learning and writing code, why not do that in a way that I'm actually useful and maybe can help out. So I started on Cucumber because I had recently started using it and I really liked using it. I still do, by the way. And I stayed because of the community, which is awesome. So first of all, these people really helped. When I first started out, I didn't know a lot about Git, and I accidentally merged something that wasn't ready, and not knowing a lot about Git, didn't know how to fix it. And I was mortified. I figured, you know, they want nothing to do with me anymore because they're gonna think I'm stupid. But in fact, they were really, really nice, and Aslak and Björn helped me to revert and fix it, and Rien helped out as well. He's right over there. And helped me find issues that I could do that were good to start with, and finding me like little bits to refactor that I can actually handle and that are not too complex, and bunches of other awesome people, including but not limited to all of these people, some of whom are here and some of whom are not. So what would be reasons to contribute to open source? For me, it was wanting to learn new things and help out and give back, because I think if you're using open source and it's giving you benefit in your work or hobby projects or whatever it is that you do, you can be a good open source citizen and do little things. And I'm going to give you lots and lots of examples of things that you can do. Other people might do it to build their resume and even get jobs from it in open source. Some people do it to scratch an itch. I think I'm quoting Rien now. I think that's how you got started, right? You just wanted to fix this one bug, and now he's maintaining Cucumber JVM, basically. So, you know, fixing a bug is a gateway drug. And there might be plenty of other reasons that you want to help out, or, you know, you can make up your own. So what can you do in open source? Obviously, you can help out on the code. You can fix bugs, and this is an example of, I think, that my second merge request on JVM, where I added some tests to reproduce a bug and then was able to fix the bug. You can add new features, which I'm not there yet, but you know, maybe someday. Or there's other things that you can do in the code. You can refactor. Recently, I did a little tiny brush up on the Kotlin examples, and we love data classes, and you know, to make it just a little bit nicer. Or you can add unit tests. In fact, my very first merge request that got accepted to Cucumber JVM was just that. It was a very old issue that I was trying to reproduce, and I added a unit test to show that the issue was no longer present. So I added a unit test and closed an issue. Win! Other things, you can upgrade dependencies. Recently I got a message on GitHub saying that Jackson DataBind, which is a Java serialization library, am I saying that correctly? That it had a vulnerability, one that was quite nasty until you upgrade to a certain version. I pointed that out at work and got a bug bounty trophy out of that for fun, and also found that some of the projects that we use, like GraphQL, also made use of Jackson. Even though it was only a test dependency, I figured, you know, I can do a pull request for that. It's very easy. Clone the project, do the change, run the tests, do the PR. It takes maybe 10, 15 minutes, and it got merged the next day. So that's very nice. And another thing that you can do is review PRs. You'll learn a lot from that because you can see how things work and how other people write code. I mainly ask questions at this point if I'm doing code review, so I'm learning a lot. I don't know if I'm helping, but still. But what if you're not a programmer? So I'm going to quote this book that I think is an awesome book if you're interested in open source and getting into open source. I recommend reading it. It's Forge Your Future with Open Source by Vicky Brasseur. And that's my copy with my highlight. Please don't feel you have nothing to contribute to free and open source software if you aren't a programmer. You can still help out, and there's so much that you can do. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. Obviously, you can do the documentation. And I'll tell you more about that. But you can also help out the community, help with issues, testing, other things. I think that Alex, who I don't see in the room right now, oh, right, over there, you're a product manager for Eclipse or part of Eclipse. So that's the thing that you can do. It doesn't show up on GitHub, but it needs doing. And if you don't know what to do, ask. There's a bunch of people here from the Cucumber community. We have stuff that isn't even on GitHub, but that does need to get done. So documentation. You can fix typos. I was fiddling with PyTest, which is a mutation testing tool in Java, and one of the error messages that I got had a typo. Being a tester, I don't like typos, so clone the project, fix the typo, do the PR, and it got merged the next day, and it took me all of 10 minutes. But it makes it just a little bit nicer. You can fix dead links. I was reading Docker documentation. The get support link went to a 404 page. Now, if I want help, I don't want a 404 page. So fix that. Got merged. You can edit documentation if you think, hey, this isn't clear, I'm missing something, or this point could be made more concise. Send an edit, we'll review, and it'll get merged. You can add missing information. I was doing a Spring tutorial, and there was a little part, just one tiny step, it was missing. I was able to figure it out. It was no big deal. But I figure, hey, the next person who does this, Spring is hard enough if you're learning it. If you're just starting to learn it, you know, why would they expend the same mental energy that I just did? I can easily fix this. And I did, and it got merged. And I especially really like this feedback from Aslak. I wrote a page on testable architecture in the documentation, which is based off of a blog post and or a talk that he did. You probably don't even remember this, do you? Well, it's in my brag file. Because, you know, I wrote basically things that you'd said, but made a page of it in the documentation. And, you know, that's nice. Even if you don't have the time to write documentation, but you're like, hey, this is really unclear, this needs help. I've read and rewritten the documentation so many times now, I don't even know what's clear anymore. So I need all of your fresh eyes to help me. Just create an issue if you think, hey, this is really confusing, or this should really be in there because I'm always looking for it and cannot find it. Help me out. And one thing I also really appreciate, review PRs. If I'm writing a new part, I'll create a PR. And usually within a day, Ole, whom I've never met, reviews the thing and points out, hey, you made a typo there, or that sentence could be a little bit clearer, and makes it just a little bit nicer. And I really love that, because it's the product is the result of collaboration. You can answer questions on any of the communication channels, Slack, mailing list, Gitter, and help out. You know, you can help each other out. And if you find, hey, this question's been answered several times, maybe it should be in the docs, consider adding it to the documentation. You know, you could find an issue, and then please report it, because, you know, it might not make us very happy. If we don't know it's there, we can't fix it, or no one can fix it. So if you're not sure that you found a bug, you can contact the community of whatever project you're using and ask them, is this a bug? Is this by design? How does it work? Before you create an issue, check for duplicates, that you're not creating an issue that people are already aware of. If you do create an issue, provide all of the relevant information so that we can help you. You know, what version are you using? How are you using it? What is your code? We have a GitHub template for that. And if you have a project that doesn't have a GitHub template, that's a good first PR. Add a template with all of the information that you need to do a good bug report. You can help, you can help reproduce issues if it's unclear and add information on how to reproduce the issue. Or better yet, add a test that shows the issue. You can triage issues on how bad are they, how many people would be affected, and even you can label them. Is it related to, for instance, in JVM, is it related to Android? Is it related to Spring? Is it related to Maven or Gradle? Or whatever, subcategories are relevant for the repo. Testing needs done. If there's a bug fix, you can test it. If there's a new feature or a new release, you can test that. I did a lot of testing for Cucumber expressions when Rien first built it. But also you can test the documentation or tutorials. We have a 10-minute tutorial in the Cucumber documentation that is in several languages. Ooh, I almost said how many. And some of those languages I don't actually know, but I know just enough to follow the steps and do it. But sometimes something changes and I need help for the languages that I don't know to make sure that everything still makes sense. Okay, but what if you have no programming skills or no time? There are other things that you can do. But seriously, most projects run on volunteers. We don't get paid to do it. But you or your company or your employer are using these tools for free, and they are making your work easier. So you or your employer can donate money. And Cucumber uses Open Collective for that, but there are other projects that use different ways. I know Sam Aaron of Sonic Pi uses Patreon. If it's a project that's helpful, see if you can donate money. And one of my coworkers recently donated his education budget for the year because he didn't go to any conferences or anything, and donated that to a project that he was using. How to get started? Well, you need to find a project and see how you can contribute to the project. Find something that you want to do or can do. You might need some tools. And most of all, have fun, because it's fun collaborating on open source. So to find a project that you want to work on, one way is to work on a project that you use because you're probably already familiar with it and you know how it works. So it's easier to get started. But there are plenty of websites that can help you find a project, and also where you can search for maybe the language that you want to do, or different things. And also I put the picture of the book, Force Your Future with Open Source, because it has a very detailed description of how to look for projects and what to think about, like what type of project you want to work on and everything. So if you want to get started, good files to look for are the contributing and the README. That should be there and should help you on how to get started. Them being there is also an indication that they want you to get started. If they're not there, then it might be a little bit harder, but you can always contact the community, and anything that you find out, document it in these files. And what to do? Well, obviously, if you have a problem that you want to solve, you can do that. Oh, wait. And otherwise, you can look for issues that are marked good first issue or similar labels, like the help wanted. We have those also if it's tools or combination of tools that we don't use ourselves. So we need someone to help out on fixing those. You might need some tools like Git. You might need to know a little bit about Markdown. I learned all of that on the documentation. It's not that hard. You might need a programming environment if you want to do code. Depending on your program languages, you'll need different tools. And if you want to get started, tomorrow is an open space. I have plenty of good first issues on the documentation, and I'd love to do a workshop and get you all started. Thank you.